Guys, I want to share something with you that I'm really, really excited about. I've mentioned it a few times, but I am now a grief recovery specialist. And what that means is I help people actually recover from grief. Like, you don't have to stay where you're at. I take people through one-on-one and groups, and we really go through steps to identify first what's holding you back. Did you know grief is like having a bunch of rocks in your backpack? So we've got to unpack those, and I give you step-by-step ways to actually move forward. So if you want to learn more about this, there's a link in the show notes that you can book a call with me. I do one-on-ones, I do groups. I would love to speak with you about how this could work for you. Thanks. Welcome to Widowed Too Soon. This is Michelle Bader-Ebersole. I'm sitting here with my friend and co-host, Mark Massaro. How's it going, Mark?
I'm doing great, Michelle. How are you?
We'll ask you first. So
I said I'm doing great. I'm doing really, really well, and everything's going fantastic. Would you like to know what's been going on in my life?
I actually would. How about you share it with us?
Okay.
I don't think you were here last time, I guess.
Well, no, actually,
No, you are here because we are ahead an episode. So the one that they're going to hear tomorrow, you're in. So you.
But is it tomorrow?
It's going to be tomorrow where your voice will be there again. Anyways, whatever. What have you been
tomorrow
doing
for us? Okay.
Yes.
So since we last talked, let's see. Well, I'm moving forward, trying to get all my real estate stuff started. That's been kind of overwhelming. So I took headshots and photos, which is like super weird.
You did?
Yeah. Well, my cousin helped me out with it. Yeah.
Was it like glamour shots in the 80s?
No, but that would have been cool.
Or 90s. I had glamour shots.
Did you? I think every girl did in like junior high.
13. Yes.
Yeah.
That's my mom bought it for me for
with like the blue and veiny background or whatever.
Yes. And they put all the makeup on you and the hair.
Yes, the high hair. Yes, I did the high hair.
Wait, maybe we could use your new like glamour shot for like on one of our episodes.
It's so not a glamour shot, but no, but I just dressed up and looked professional, and then my cousin took some photos. So actually he saved me a lot of money. And then his wife, who I also call my cousin, she did like Photoshop and stuff. So she took away the ugliness and, made me look nicer, which was awesome. And actually I went to Kentucky. I'm always back and forth in Kentucky, it seems like, but with my in-laws, and that was super cool. We went to, Cumberland Falls. I always confuse it with the Cumberland Gap. But Cumberland Falls, and I went horseback riding for my first time, which is super cool. They are like amazing animals. As I was telling you before the episode started, that I never had much interest in horses. Always thought they were cool, but my horse like just wanted to like please me. Like I would pet him and tell him he was a good boy, and like he would like look back for approval. Like, oh, was that good? Did you see how I went over that big old rock or whatever?
Nice.
And it was super cool. I was just like, okay, I see how people are so passionate about this. Like they are amazing, incredible, majestic animals. And it's funny. I kept thinking the whole time how, Christ is going to be on the white horse or whatever, if I'm remembering that right.
Yes. Yeah, I believe so.
Or I think so. Or is it the Antichrist that's deceptively? No, anyways, I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank right now. I think it is Christ on the white horse. Yes. But anyways, it just made me think about that. And I was like, wow, like what made me think about is like how long these animals have been really important to humanity. And I don't know, there was just something really cool about it that I was like, wow, this was so much more than what I was expecting. I've ridden an elephant before at the fair. Nice. And that was just like, okay, I've ridden an elephant. It didn't give me that feeling. But horses are very majestic, very intelligent creatures. And it was super cool. So, and I'm getting ready for Tina to come for a visit, which I'm super excited about. My sweet Tina. And, just different little things that have been going on, getting childcare for the kids and stuff like that, trying to figure stuff out. And I mentioned before that my mom is not doing too well. So if anybody, feels led to pray for her, I would appreciate that. I'm not going to get into what's going on. It's just a lot of stuff and, just depressing stuff that we don't need to talk about on air. But so anyways, so that's what's been up with me. How about you, Michelle? What's going on in your world? Are you still married?
Yes.
Awesome. Tell me all about it. What's going on? How's Joel? I
He's
miss Joel.
great. He's great. We've been married for 3 months and a week almost,
Nice. Still
somewhere
counting.
in there, March
Yeah.
18th. Not that I'm counting or anything, but I realized that we were halfway to our 6-month anniversary the other day. I was like, happy 3 months.
That's so cool.
And yes.
Month anniversary.
Month anniversary, you count those things in the
That's cool.
beginning.
He's such a good man. I really like Joel.
I know, right?
Yeah, I know.
He
I
is
know, right?
absolutely amazing. And every day I feel so blessed. Like, I know you get this with Tina, like the second time, like if you've already lost someone you love and then you love someone else, it's like amazing. Like you just appreciate every single moment, every second. Like I literally wake up and I'm like, I can't believe you're my husband. Like I'm so happy. Like this is amazing. He shared with me. So back it up. What we did this last weekend is we went to this thing called Heart Change, and I'd been through it before 9 years ago, and I wanted my kids and him to go to this. And it's basically 4 days, just you and God, and doing all these, they call them processes, things to grow closer to God, and then for us to grow closer together as a new family unit. And it was absolutely beautiful to see that. The older two, his oldest and my oldest didn't go, but our younger two went, my younger two, and
Nice.
they were able to really bond with Joel and he got to know them better. So it accomplished everything I wanted. So one of the things he said to me during a process was, one thing I love and admire about you is that you have made my life a garden. It was just weeds and desert before, and now it's a garden. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And
Would you say he digs it?
Oh my gosh, I can't with your dad jokes.
That's awesome. Sorry, I had
You
to.
were just, yeah, well, that was pretty quick. That was pretty quick that you came up with that. But yes, he digs it. And anyways, it was just beautiful to see the kids' hearts opening up and just seeing their relationships with God get deeper. And I really enjoyed it. It was hard. It's a lot of hard work, and you can't, be on social media and do a lot of things. Like you got to really step back from the world and just focus on getting to know the heart of God. And you have time to work through like anything that's come between you and God. And Haley was able to open up in front of the entire group and share some things on her heart. And she actually cried, which she never does. And so it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing that I absolutely loved. So that's what we've been doing the last 4 days. We just got done last night, and they're long days. They're like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Like you go home, but then you come right back. We really bonded, and I also loved it because I think Joel made his new best friend. So that's fun because he didn't really have any friends here yet. And him and this guy, he's about the same age as us, 29.
Right. Yeah, naturally.
And, yeah. And they really bonded. And he was also, you were given buddies, and he was Peyton's buddy. And so the three of them are going to like get together and stuff. So
that's cool. It's so good for a man to find a good Christian brother, somebody you can confide in, relate to, somebody to lift you up. Well, what is that verse as iron sharpens iron?
Iron, yes, yes.
And it is so true. Like really having good friends, like really shapes your faith, and it's just a really positive thing. So that's awesome.
Yeah, because that's one thing that he's really been missing. Like he was involved in all these men's Bible studies and had all these great friends in Louisiana, and so that's something that has been something hard for him. He's lacking that. So that was one of the best things of the weekend. Is I know him and this guy are gonna get together and probably do Bible studies, and they just really seem to hit it off. So that was
sweet.
Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Just summer stuff. The kids are with their grandma. Luke's mom came and got them, and she lives out of town, but she wanted to pick them up and go to spend the night at a hotel. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, they're going to like go to dinner and do all these fun things. So I'm happy for them. And I love that, they're still very much in her life, and seeing
that's
her,
awesome.
I know you get that with, your in-laws too, that they're still in your life and in the kids' lives. And, I didn't know if that would shift when I got married.
Of course.
But it hasn't. They're still here, and we're still doing things, and it's, not awkward. And everyone knows they were at my wedding, and it's just been a beautiful thing. So anyways,
that's awesome.
Did you have anything else?
No. What are we doing today?
Well,
I think we have a special treat for the audience.
We have a special treat. I'm so excited. We actually have a man again. I mean, not like saying you're not a man.
What?
We finally have a man on the show. I'm just kidding.
Finally.
Finally, a male guest, another widower. We hear from widows a lot, but not very often do we get the privilege of having a widower on our show. So today we have special guest Rob Linger. Rob
and Rob gets the special title of super fan.
He is our super fan.
He's listened to every single episode, and he did it in a surprisingly short period of time, and we're just really grateful. He's a great guy. So anyways, go ahead, Michelle. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just Rob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys?
We're good. We're
doing great.
Very happy to be here and so excited for you to get to share with our audience because you have a different story than us. Like we all have different stories, and your story is going to touch someone else that ours couldn't. So we'd love it if you could just share. You can start wherever you want, like how you met your wife, your journey, just whatever you feel like you want to share.
All right. Well, first off, I'm going to say we had a rainy day today, but for me, the last few weeks, months have been a lot less cloudy days, if you know what I mean.
Oh, good. We do.
That's wonderful. Love hearing that.
I'm going to start off back in high school. I mean, we're going way back.
Yeah, let's do it.
My high school basketball coach, he was a former basketball official, a referee, and I had talked with him as a junior in high school that I may be interested in doing that. Well, fast forward about 4 years, and he calls me one day and says, Rob, I know that you're interested in becoming a basketball official. There's a class starting in a couple of weeks to help you get your license. So I decided to go ahead and do it. I kind of lost interest in it, but I decided, I'll go ahead and do it. Well, fast forward then another couple of months, I had my basketball license and officiating license, and I was reffing a junior high boys basketball game where after the game, an older gentleman walked up to me and said, hey, my son runs a church basketball league on Friday nights, and he's always looking for basketball officials. Are you interested in doing that? I said, yeah, I could use the experience, so I decided to go ahead and do it. Well, that first week, it was, I believe, if I remember right, the 11th of January, 1985, I actually met my wife for the first time. It was her brother was the one who ran the league. Her dad was the one who asked me to ref the league. And she was a scorekeeper for her brother's teams.
Nice.
So it was her and a good friend of hers. She ran the scorebook, and the friend ran the clock and the scoreboard. So the first few weeks, I kind of had my eyes on the other lady. And my buddy who was reffing with me, about 3 or 4 weeks into it, said, Rob, I think the redhead likes you. And as you can see in the picture behind me.
Yeah, she's beautiful for those of you who can't see.
Yeah, I married up. So I told my buddy that there is no way I'm ever going out with a redhead. Well, turns out
that's funny.
A year and a half later, we were married. So.
Oh, wow. So just out of high school? Oh, no, you weren't in high school.
Yeah. This was about 4 years out of 4 or 5 years out of high school.
Okay.
So we got married in 1986, July 18th, the hottest day of the year in Cleveland, Ohio that year.
Wow.
The church we got married in, her dad was the pastor of the church, and they did not have air conditioning, and it was 98 degrees. We got married on a Friday night, so that church had all day to just percolate and get hot. So, but you know what? Kathy and I, neither one paid attention to the heat. We just had a great time. So,
yeah, because this is 38 years later?
30. It would be 37 years.
Somewhere in that range? And you still remember that?
Yes. Well,
that's cool. You made a memory.
It's hard to forget that temper and the sweat running.
Yeah.
Kathy was a teacher. She taught high school math for many, many years. She retired after she was diagnosed with the multiple myeloma cancer. but she retired after 35 years of teaching. Let's see. She was also born with a bad aortic heart valve. And when she was 20 years old, actually, she had her first open heart surgery to replace the aortic valve.
Gosh.
Wow. And then 10 years, actually 9 years, 364 days later, they had put a pig's valve in, and that pig's valve generally lasts 10 to 15 years. It was a day short of 10. They replaced it again with an artificial valve.
Wow.
This heart surgery was 6 months after our one and only child was born. During the pregnancy, it was a difficult pregnancy for Kathy, and after this artificial valve was placed into her heart, she was on blood thinners for the rest of her life. So the doctors pretty much told us at that point, no more kids because of the blood thinners. So we had the one daughter, and we just enjoyed her so much. So
sorry about
Silence your cell phone, please.
I'm sorry. I meant to. Sorry, please go
silence. So she continued on another 17 years. She had to have her third open heart surgery. The heart valve started forming scar tissue around it. And as a result, they had to go back in a third time and do this surgery. Fast forward then another 9 years, and she was starting to notice some symptoms of what could possibly be heart related, shortness of breath, just tired, doing things that should never cause this. So she went back to her cardiologist, which she did twice a year. He performed EKG, he did an echocardiogram, he did everything and said, your heart valve is pumping great. It's not heart related. He said, I believe you have anemia and we need to send you to a hematologist for additional tests. So this was in 2019. In October of 2019, she got the blood results back, and it showed that she had multiple myeloma blood cancer. And this was something that we didn't know. I'd never heard of it before. In fact, he told her what Kathy thought was going to be just a routine doctor's appointment. They were going to talk about whatever was causing this anemia, hey, take this medicine and it'll help you out type of doctor's appointment. So she went by herself, and he told her the news that she had cancer all by herself.
Oh, so hard.
Which was pretty devastating for her and for me as well. So that started a 3.5 year roughly long battle of the cancer. In 2020, right during the COVID crisis, she went in for a stem cell transplant that was supposed to be about 2.5 week hospital stay. During that time, they if you haven't had a stem cell transplant, they give you a pretty not lethal, but a pretty strong chemo. And she had some really bad reactions to that chemo, where she started dry heaving, so extreme that she broke blood vessels in both of her eyes. Because she was on the blood thinners, her right eye would not stop bleeding, and she ended up with a detached retina. She ended up with 8 surgeries over the next 6 months to try and repair that detached retina, and nothing she would do, nothing the doctors did was curing it at all. She ended up blind in her right eye as a result. She ended up in the hospital for that COVID time for 5.5 weeks. And as you guys know, there were no visitors allowed. It was just a very difficult time. She was not, because she was so heavily medicated, she was not able to communicate with me. There was no texting, no calling, no nothing. She just was not capable of doing that at that point. Fortunately, we had a nurse and a floor doctor who called me every day. or the nurse texted us every day and just let us know how she was doing, what she was doing. And that really helped us get through that time. It was incredible. After that 5.5 weeks, she got home, and she ended up trying, I believe it was 6 different treatments, chemo treatments, to try and get this multiple myeloma into line, and nothing was working. Fast forward to this about a year ago, we have a family lake cottage that's in Western New York, about a 2-hour drive away, that she just absolutely loved being at. And in August of 2022, we were there. We had a great week. We had some friends from church come up and spend some time with us. And she ended up telling this nurse, who his name is Matt. He was her favorite nurse, favorite medical professional that she dealt with. And she told Matt later on in September that if she never goes back to the cottage, she ended up having the best time ever that week in August. So I think she kind of knew in her mind that the end was near for her. But shortly after we got home from that trip in August, she started going downhill, and it went pretty quick. End of September, I had to take her into the ER, and they ended up telling us at that point that her body was no longer producing blood. And so she had to have transfusions like every other day or every day. And
my gosh,
it was getting really bad. So they transferred her down to the hospital we were at. It's called University Hospitals of Cleveland. And it's a very large hospital system. One of 2 in our area. And,
I've heard of it.
They transferred her down to the main campus in downtown Cleveland, where there's Seidman Cancer Center, which is a great facility, and she just loved the doctors there. But transferred her there, and during that time, they gave her pretty much a last-ditch effort with a chemo that was called VD PACE, and just a concoction of 6 different chemos, and that knocked her way down. And that they started that, it was a 4 straight days, 24 hours for 4 straight days this treatment was going on.
Wow.
And after that 4th day, she had about, I don't remember if it may have been 4 or 5 days, and then she hit rock bottom. And that's when the immune system was gone. Everything was just gone. And she was ready to give up at that point. But fortunately, the VD PACE was kicking in, and it was going to give her, actually, she was going to rebound. Typically, it's 2 to 6 months for this cancer that the VD PACE gives remission. So after about 2 months, we started noticing that she started dropping down again. So she spent that entire month of October in the hospital, released the first week in November. During that time in the hospital, her oncologist told us that there was a new drug that's going through FDA approval at that point that he felt was going to be a perfect fit for her, and that if this works, it should be a game changer for her. She that gave us a lot of hope. There was a lot of hope, and so we kept waiting, kept looking online, trying to check the FDA website to see just where this approval status was. Finally, in the end of about middle of November, actually, it was early November. It was the week that she was being released from the hospital. The doctor told us that it was approved and it was going to be in the hospital's hands shortly. Well, that shortly ended up being about a month. So around, I think it was December 10th, she went back into the hospital for what was going to be 7 to 10 days of treatment with this new drug. And it was basically give an injection on the first day, wait 2 days, take the second injection, wait another 2 days for any side effects, and then take the third injection, wait another 2 days, and then she can go home. If everything worked out perfect. Well, there was a little hiccup, and she ended up being there about, I think, 8 days. She left. We had a lot of high hopes that this new medication was going to work. Her spirits were pretty high. My daughters and my spirits, my son-in-law, we were all full of hope that this was going to work. We had a really good Christmas together, all four of us. My daughter and son-in-law live close. They live about 10 miles away. And so we had a really good Christmas together. 2 days after Christmas, she was going in. We had to take her in on Christmas Eve to get blood work done because she was still having issues with the blood. So about every 2 days we were taking her in. And like I said, the Christmas was fine. Tuesday after Christmas, she started having a little bit more issues and some neurological issues, which we thought, which actually was a side effect of this medication, but it's also a sign that the cancer is progressing. So we were going with the hope that it was the medication. And Thursday, between Christmas and New Year's, we had to take her back in again. My daughter would take her in, and she ended up with another transfusion, some more blood product, and then Friday had to do it again, 2 days in a row. Well, we got home Friday from that hospital outpatient visit, and after a few hours, I started noticing that there were some issues going on with her. She showed some signs. Then she fell. First time she had fallen. And I ended up talking to the nurse practitioner that we were working with, and he said, try and get her back into the ER, and we'll get her administered into the cancer floor again. So Friday night, early Saturday morning, right around midnight, they got her into another room at Seidman Cancer, and that early Saturday morning, they took a blood culture that would actually tell us where the cancer actually was at this point. That would take a few days to get in, and so Saturday she was talkative, but not normal. She just wasn't. She was a very talkative person. She loved to talk, and she was talkative, communicative, but not like her normal self. By Sunday, she was this was New Year's. This would have been New Year's Eve, I guess. No, New Year's Day. She just wasn't talkative at all, and that was really the last we had talked with her. Monday, the doctors came in and said the cultures came back, and it is the cancer. The cancer had progressed greatly since she had left the hospital just 2 weeks earlier. And they said, at this point, the only thing we can do for her is put her into hospice. So my daughter and I decided, okay, let's get hospice. I made a phone call to a local hospice company, and because of her condition, she was able to stay in the hospital for a couple of weeks before they had to move her out. So hospice was going to come, and that following day, Tuesday morning, they were going to come and meet with us, get all the information, and then officially start hospice care on Tuesday. We met with the hospice representative. She came in at 10 in the morning. We talked with her until about 10:40. Then she said, I got to go to the nurse's station, get some information from them. Then I'll print out all the paperwork. I'll bring it back in. You can sign it, and then she'll officially be in hospice. So we're like, okay. Shortly after she left, one of the hospital chaplains came up, and he was talking with us, and Kathy was not communicative at all. Like I said, she was laying with her head towards the side, and pretty much been like that for a while, since actually Sunday. And we were talking with the chaplain. We were kind of actually joking around a little bit between my daughter, my son-in-law, myself, and the chaplain. We were just just having some small talk and laughing a little bit. And actually my daughter and I were kind of, okay, this is getting real. Now we need to kind of think about planning for a funeral at some point. And we were discussing that a little bit. And about right around 11 o'clock, 10:59, I think it was, Kathy opened up her eyes as wide as could be and reached her arms straight out like she was reaching for something. And that was her last breath.
Wow.
Almost exactly 23 hours since we placed her in comfort care, hospice care, she died. And we both, when she opened her eyes, we thought she had wakened up, and we went to her, and that's when I saw her chest was no longer heaving like it was. And I said, guys, she's not breathing. Then I stood up and I said, just imagine what she's experiencing right now.
Wow.
And that was major comfort for me.
I totally relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy had a very strong faith, as do I. She, all through this cancer struggle, she let every one of her doctors know that this was in the Lord's hands, not hers. Whatever the outcome is, it's in his hands, and she's fine with that. And that was her life, and that's the way she lived her final 3.5 years. And she was going to be a witness to the Lord through all she did. So,
wow, that's an incredible story.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I love hearing those stories. I hate what you went through, just to be clear. But thanks. I love hearing those stories of when you just know that, like, they're with the Lord. There's something so comforting about not having to feel bad for them. Right. And I'm sure you've heard me say that.
I don't know how people that don't have the Lord go through this.
Right.
I know.
It would be so difficult. I love how you were able to right away just talk about what she was experiencing and right away be able to do that. So take us through those first few days. What were they like for you?
They stunk.
Yes.
I got home from the hospital. She died, like I said, right around 11 in the morning. I got home around 2:30 that afternoon, and the nurses there that have worked with Kathy for 3+ years, they kicked me out. They said, you need to get out of here. You spent enough time here. Get home. Just go do something to try and get your mind off this. I came home. I sat in my kitchen, and the house isn't any different than it was when she was here, but it was so quiet.
Yes.
That shocked me.
It's empty.
It was. And it's like, I've spent many times in here alone while Kathy was in the hospital. I'd come home at night or whatever, and it just struck me how just dead silent it was.
It's different, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
It very is. It very so is it. But it's so that first few days, we had a funeral to plan, and my daughter, son-in-law, and my family. I have 2 sisters and 2 brother-in-laws, plus Kathy's has a brother and 2 other sisters, and all their kids. Very close. We're all real close. They were all very helpful during that whole time. We ended up having the funeral that following Saturday. The viewing, we did it at our church because the funeral home already was booked, and it was a smaller funeral home. And so we held everything at our church. On Friday night, we had the visitation, and I was overwhelmed with the support. There were the funeral home itself, the employees of the funeral home who was managing the goings on at the church. They said they estimated about 400 people came that night.
Wow.
Which just blew me away. And visitation was supposed to be from 4 till 7:30, and I think 4 to 7. I'm sorry, and we ended up the last person left at 9.
Oh wow!
And it was such an incredible experience. And same thing happened at Saturday for the funeral, and so many people came. I had friends coming from high school friends that came from Florida, came from Boston. I had cousins of Kathy who came from Canada. I had and there's so many people that came from so far away. I can't even think where all they came from at this point, but I was just so overwhelmed again with support from my friends, my family. It was just such an incredible time. But still, even though I had the family here, those first few, that first month was really tough.
Yeah.
And I ended up going back to work that next Monday. And I had to, just to try and get my head around something else. And whether that was right or not, it helped me. It helped me just to focus on something. And for the first time in 3+ years, it wasn't Kathy's health at this time. So however fair or unfair that was, it did help me to process that a little bit.
And there is no right or wrong.
Right.
If it works for you, then it's the right thing.
But here's where I did probably make a mistake for me personally. I told my daughter and my 2 sisters that I think I wanted her closet cleared out pretty quickly. And so that first day while I was at work, they cleared it out. And I think that was a mistake. That we ended up donating all of her stuff to a charitable organization in the Akron, Ohio area. And some people got some really good clothes from Kathy. And my daughter and another niece are built about the same size about the same body style as Kathy is. And they took some things that they wanted. And so it's good to see both of them wearing Kathy's things every so often. That's cool. But I looking back on it now, I think that was a little too soon to clear everything out. At the time, it seemed like it was going to help me. As time's gone on, I would say it probably wasn't the best choice for me personally. I think I would have liked to at least looked at her clothing in the closet. Just there were times when it was really tough, just sitting there looking at an empty closet, thinking, that's just one of another many signs that this is final. And
yeah, gosh, I understand that too. For me, I also did the same thing as you. And for me, it was a good thing because I knew it would be harder later. I knew I was already going through so much grief. It's like, let's just get it all over with now kind of a feeling. But I know everybody listening will understand this, but maybe not if somebody hasn't been through this would understand. But like, there is one thing is that I wish I could have had her clothes a little longer to try and smell her.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she didn't wear perfume or anything, but you know what I mean, right? Yeah. But like the memories that, our brain is directly connected to smell. It brings back memories a lot of times. And so that's the only thing.
I honestly don't think there's any right answer. If I would have waited, I probably would have come back now saying, I wish I would have removed those sooner.
Yeah,
and
right.
it's just one of those things. I don't think there's any right answer, and anything that I would have chosen, I think I would have double guessed.
Yes, it's hard no matter how you look at it. I mean, it's just a hard situation. It's nothing in life prepares you for what you walked through, for what Michelle and I walked through. There's just nothing in life that can prepare you for that. It's not like we have experience. Now, I know some of our listeners have been through this twice, and so that's obviously not what I'm talking about, but there's no practice for this. And I've said it before, like, it's so interesting. Every other emotion has an opposite, sadness to happiness, anger to joy, but like, there's no opposite of grief. And so there's really no way to really understand naturally how to combat it. You can't really combat it. It's just, it hits you out of left field whenever you're least expecting it. And especially as you get to this stage that we're at now. And I'm really happy to hear that you're getting a lot more sunshine in your life nowadays, so to speak, and less rain clouds. But even then, you know, I know how it is. I see that picture behind you. I know that you could look at that picture right now and just start crying. And it's been, you know, what, almost a year now?
No, it'll be 6 months and 7 more days.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And it's so hard. It's you never know what's right around the corner. What is gonna, I mean, for me sometimes, like my wife Lacey wore glasses. My daughter does not, but she said, "Oh, Daddy, let me see your glasses. I want to try them on." And I was like, "Don't move." And I took a picture of her and I actually showed it to my father-in-law and mother-in-law, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, like that's Lacey."
Wow.
And so there's things like that, and it can just hit you out of nowhere, or Facebook memories or whatever it might be that you know, pictures or whatever. But I'm so glad you got to experience that feeling of the peace that goes beyond all understanding, right? Like knowing where she was in that moment, knowing exactly who she was reaching out for. It just reminds us what we're all doing. We're all waiting for that. We want to be there too. And obviously we do the best we can while we're here, but yeah, that's, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's just, I just relate to your story so much.
And it's kind of interesting. I've told many people this, that, and you've said the same thing, Mark. I know I've heard you say this, but this is before I heard you say this, that if I had a chance to somehow bring her back, even for an hour, I wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. Because for one, it would be selfish on my part to pull her out of paradise, out of heaven, out of being with her Lord and Savior, to come back to me. And I wouldn't do that. And it was interesting when I heard you say that as well. I was like, yes.
Yeah, right. Like she'd be like, how dare you? You know, just be patient. Oh, yeah. You'll see me, you know. Don't take me back here.
Kathy was one who would tell you what you didn't want to hear. And she would have told me off if I would have done
that. I relate to that. That's really funny. Wow.
So, like I said, I went back to work. That Wednesday, I ended up having a little bit of a meltdown. I have 2 pictures of her since she was a high school teacher. I had some school pictures from, I think one was 2016 and the other one I think was either 15 or 17. They were back-to-back years, but sitting on my desk right underneath one of my monitors. And that morning I got in, I looked at one of those pictures, and I lost it. I went into major grief, and I had a meltdown. And as the morning went on, it got worse, and I didn't know how to handle it. And they told me I should go home. And I was like, I'm not going to go home to an empty house where this would just snowball. And so I stuck it out there. I got onto Google and I started Googling. Yeah. I started Googling widowed or widowers and widows and everything. And dealing with, at that time, I don't even know if I used the word grief or not, but I searched for anything related to widows, and that I found your blog, your podcast, and I found Grief Share. And I looked at that. There was actually a Grief Share that was going to be starting the following Wednesday. This was a Wednesday, so it was a week from then. But unfortunately, I already had a meeting set up with one of our financial advisors to get the ball rolling of getting some of her name off our different accounts and all. And so I missed that first week of Grief Share, but I've been going every week since then. And
wow,
I would say the first 3 or 4 weeks of Grief Share, I didn't get it. It just wasn't sinking in for me. And I don't remember what that particular week's Grief Share was about, but it hit. Whatever it was, it stuck. And from that point on, I started having more and more sunny days, and it was the Lord. That's the only thing I can really pinpoint it to. It was the Lord just helping me through this. That you're going to get through this, and that first session of Grief Share just stuck so well with me that I decided, you know what, I think this is something that our church, my church, can do as well. We tried it a few years ago, and it just didn't work out real well. I don't know why. I don't know if it was well attended or what, but talked with my pastor and his wife, and which his wife was actually considered Kathy her best friend. We were both very close with our pastor and his wife, and we are going to, in the fall this year, start our own Grief Share sessions. So
that's fantastic.
And myself and another widower at church are going to be leading it up. So
that's so
great. That's
you're
really
already
neat.
Yeah, you're already letting God make beauty from ashes and use you. It's very similar to when Mark and I were baby widows, as we call people who haven't been widows very long.
Which is where I am.
Yeah, we were baby widows like you, and we decided to start the podcast. And I see you doing the same thing, being able to help others.
Yes, well, and it'll help you.
Yes.
It also, it helps me to feel that what Kathy went through may be able to help others.
Yes.
What the experience that I gained from that and went through, and I just touched a little bit of Kathy's life. She touched so many people, and we worked with the teens for many, many years, 25 years total in a youth group. And we finally graduated and started working with the young marrieds and engaged class. And it's funny because young marrieds and engaged, I use the acronym Why Me? Young marrieds and engaged. And that stuck. Everybody calls it the Why Me class now. So
that's funny.
That's awesome.
We've just been able to work with so many people, and she just touched so many people. And like I said, she had a tendency to speak the truth, whether you wanted to hear it or not. So that would tick some people off from time to time, but most of the time they ended up saying, you know what, I needed to hear that. So
Lacey was the same way, and it comes from a place of love, and it comes from a place of courage. It comes from a place of faith. And so, there were times where Lacey would say things to people where I was like, oh my gosh, did you really just say that to them that directly? But it never was taken by people the way that, I can't say never. It was usually not taken by people the way that I was afraid it was going to, because it was because she was so blunt, but she was speaking truth. And I could hear just in the few things that you have told us about Kathy, about how many seeds she planted as she was going through that battle. And gosh, the amount of faith that it takes to say, it's in the Lord's hands. And I saw a lot of that with Lacey also. And I think it's really beautiful.
Especially to the medical profession, they think they're God a lot of times.
Yeah.
And so she was just like, I don't care. I'm telling them this is where I am. This is what's got me to this point so far. The Lord has got me through 3 open heart surgeries. She ended up, when the doctors told us that we shouldn't have any more kids, we both took matters into our own hands and made sure that, she was not going to get pregnant again. And when she had her tubes tied, she ended up with some internal bleeding and had to have an emergency surgery at midnight to remove 2 liters of blood from her abdomen. And the doctors were like, she was very close to dying on that table. So
wow,
there were so many things that the Lord got her through. And it was just, and that brings up another thing that I was angry at God. We were praying, asking, and this is, let me get through this and it'll make more sense. But I was angry at God. I was angry that here he had got Kathy through 3 open heart surgeries. He got her through that emergency surgery with the internal bleeding. surely he is going to clear this cancer from her and continue her legacy that he has developed with her. And as it went on, he wasn't answering that prayer. At least, he wasn't answering the way I wanted it to be answered.
Mm-hmm.
And I was mad. I was getting mad with God at this. And finally, and I don't know where the turning point was in this, but finally it dawned on me that it's his will, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a reason for what he's doing, and I may never know the reason for that, especially on this side of heaven.
Not at this side, yep.
But I decided that I had to place this in his hands and accept what he brought to us. And that happened before, I would say, while she was having that new treatment done in December, I would say is when that really made a turn in my life, sometime around that time. Another thing that happened during that time, an old high school friend of mine, I was very I was on Facebook, and I was giving updates to Kathy every chance I got. Anytime that there was something new happening, anytime she was in the hospital, every day when she was in the hospital, I would give an update for her. If you look back on my Facebook, you will see all this. And an old high school friend of mine who now lives about 3 or 4 hours away from me, she contacted me and said her college roommate husband had just been diagnosed with the same cancer, and was getting ready to start a very similar treatment to what Kathy was going through, and just wondered if I can get in contact with her to just offer some encouragement, even just talk and see what we can do. And so I went ahead and did that. That was, I think, beginning of December, and we continued chatting on Facebook and helped her out as much as I was able to, she and her husband, Mark. And Kathy died. I don't even think we were Facebook friends for a month before Kathy died. Mm-hmm. And so she got to see what I was going through at that point. Well, about a month later, her husband died. And I ended up going down to his visitation for the funeral, and she lived about 45 minutes away. And it was funny because I walked in, and it reminded me so much of Kathy's with the amount of people that were there for him. But we had never met face to face. She wouldn't have known me at all. So I walked up and I talked with her kids. I introduced myself, and they all said, "You have helped the family so much." And that wow. was encouraging to hear, because once again, it wasn't me. It was I was putting it back towards Kathy and ultimately the Lord. He was using me to help them. And when I got to her, I said, "You don't know who I am, but a mutual friend sent me." And she right away says, "You're Rob."
Wow.
And so it was very cool. We've been in contact ever since, and it's just good to know that Kathy's situation has been able to help somebody else. And yes. it just helps me feel like she didn't go through this without any reason at all. So
right.
Yeah. And here you are now also speaking to hundreds of people, potentially thousands over time.
Oh no, now I'm nervous.
Maybe millions. No,
maybe billions, infinity.
You're in like 70 countries. No, but no, but like Kathy's story, your story is helping somebody right now, just in you sharing it. And I apologize. Did you mention that woman's name? It's okay if you didn't, if you wanted to keep her anonymous.
Her name's Ellen.
Ellen. Okay. So you were able to help Ellen, and I view it the same way, that like, and I don't mean to be selfish towards any of our listeners, but of course I would have rather Lacey not passed away for me to, and rather than me help people. But like, her story has helped a lot of people. And it's like you mentioned, like, we never know why the Lord's doing what he's doing, but it reminded me of something as Lacey was towards the end of her life. I remember pleading with God, what can I do? Like, what do I do? I'm so lost. Like, what do I do? How can I save her? And I just felt this overwhelming, like, do you think I need you to save her? Like, I don't need you. If I want to save her, I'll save her. And, but you know, like you said, like, he didn't answer your prayers how you wanted them answered, but he healed Kathy. He healed Lacey. He healed Luke. Not in the way that we would have wanted, but again, going back to what you said, in a much, much better way. It's hard for us to comprehend on this side of heaven, but when we get there, we will understand it. And yeah, it's amazing already seeing in 6 months.
Right.
And I hope you know my heart well enough from listening that I would never mean this in any condescending way. I'm really proud of you. You've done a really fantastic job of honoring your wife's legacy.
Right.
And, you know, picking up the ball and moving forward in life as best as you can. And I know it's been hard. I'm not trying to imply it hasn't been hard, but I know the courage that it took to be here after 6 months, because that's when we started this podcast. I was 6 months, 8 months, I think, but it was hard. It was hard. And it was hard to relive those stories that I was trying to move forward from, and trying to, you know, we're obviously in different situations. I have 2 little kids, but for the most part, you know, it's the same in that our hearts as men, and I don't mean to disclude you, Michelle, but you know, it's there is something unimaginable that a woman brings to the table, to the relationship, that a lot of people don't understand who still have their wife happy and healthy. And I just really understand that feeling of coming home to this, just like every other time that you've been home alone, it is different.
Yes.
And if you remember my story, I knew my wife was in heaven before I even saw. Yeah. I felt it. Right. She was gone. Right. The house was empty. And that was that feeling has stuck with me, that I was down the hall, you know, I was in the front room answering some messages, having some coffee. And I just got this feeling before I even walked down the hallway. I was like, she's gone. There's nobody else in this house but me. And so I really related to you also. I mean, many things that you said, but I really, really related to that, of just this, it's indescribable. Your house is just empty and quiet. And for me, I described it as, I was like, even though I have 2 loud kids in the house, there was something still so silent about my house. And so like I said, I hope it doesn't sound condescending in any way, me being a little bit younger than you, but I'm really proud from man to man, seeing what you're doing and seeing her beautiful picture behind you, and you're still honoring her legacy and loving her really well. And it's awesome. It's beautiful to see. So yeah. Sorry, Michelle, go ahead. Oh,
no, you go ahead. Gonna kind of say the same thing. We were gonna say the same thing. I work with grievers all the time, and you're doing really, really well because you are taking steps, because we know it's not just time that heals, it's what we do with the time. And so you have taken steps right away, doing grief share, getting into that, doing it every single week, searching out podcasts, that kind of thing. You've already done huge things. Are there any specific verses or songs that really helped you through this hard time?
Well, I love music. You don't want me to sing, though, but I love music.
Are you sure? Go ahead.
But for me, I pretty much use music as background. I don't, as far as having a song that really said or did anything for me, until last night. We had a combined church service last night with another church, an African American church, and it was a really good service. It was great. But basically, our worship team went in, since we hosted at our church. Our worship team sang 2 songs, and then their choir came up and they sang 2 songs. And what a contrast between the two. But one of the songs that our worship team sang was Goodness of God. And I've sung this song at church so many times, and I guess I was just singing the words. But yesterday I was singing this, and the chorus says, all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. And when I hit that first so, I teared up so much that I couldn't sing the rest of it. And he has been so good to put this lady into my life, to put us in circumstances that he has for in so many aspects of our life. It was just, I just can't count all the things that he's been so, so good to me for. And Kathy also, it just such an incredible, and that song just hit me so well last night. And it just, I pulled out my phone and I copied that down right away, because I said, that's what I'm going to use. And as far as my verse, my life verse, I was challenged back in high school. I went to a Christian school, and one of our Bible teachers challenged us to get a life verse. And shortly after that challenge, I found Romans 8:31. What shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? And I have taken that, and I know the Bible says not to do this, but I have amplified that a little bit. And I say not only who can be against us, but what can be against us. The Lord is in control, and no matter what's thrown at me, he's got it. So, and that helped me through this as well. It just, there's not much else I could say about that, but
right. And it's amazing too, because as much as the Lord has done for all of us, and if we're all, eyes open, paying attention, you're going to know it, and you're going to see all the things the Lord has done, but it's not even scratching the surface of all he has prepared for us in eternity. And, what a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm not like cutting you off or anything, but I just want to say that. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. Kathy taught at a local high school for 35 years. And shortly after she died, the school administrators, through the high school principal, informed me that they were going to be renaming a scholarship after her and putting it into her name.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's amazing.
Back, about a week before graduation this past May, they had an awards ceremony where they were giving away all the scholarships and all the different awards like that. And my daughter and I got to go and present these. There was 2 scholarships, and it's actually going to be an annual thing. We had this picture, but it was a massive one that we used for the funeral.
Right.
And we took that with us and got to talk a little bit about Kathy and her history at that school. And my daughter then came and she started talking about Kathy's relationship with the Lord in a public high school. She was saying that. So it was so good. But
that's awesome.
It was so cool to hear that they renamed the scholarship in Kathy's name. And so that was just incredible. Then shortly after that as well, the Seidman Cancer Center, which is where she was being treated, they do twice a year. I'm sure other hospitals do this too, cancer centers in particular, had a funeral, had a memorial service, for all who had died in their care over the last 6 months. Wow. And we got to go to that, and that was an incredible experience as well. So it's just like time after time, we're able to relive Kathy's life in so many ways. So,
wow.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Praise God.
Yeah, I have a few more questions.
Sure.
Love to hear. So what do you think has been the most challenging part about being widowed?
Meals.
Yes. Yes. See, I told you you're my people.
Yeah, you guys have a lot in common in these answers.
We
yes.
Neither one of us are cooks. I mean, but Kathy did a good job. She, with her being a teacher, she would usually get home before me, so she would start. That's my phone. I'm sorry.
I didn't hear it.
Okay,
I didn't hear it either.
Then forget about it. I'm not sorry.
Yeah, here on what phone?
She worked like crazy, and she did a great job preparing meals. And when she died, I was like, what am I going to do for food? And I would look in the kitchen, and literally for the first month and a half, I think I made one meal. I had family coming and providing dinners. I had friends providing dinners. I had people wanting to take me out. It was just one after another, and I was so blessed with that. And my friends and family just rose to the occasion. And when I was ready to start doing things on my own, they kind of stepped back, and that was great. My family came over, and we had a meal here one night, and I was helping clean up afterwards, and I holding utensils. I'm like, is this yours or mine? I'm asking my sister, and she goes, this is yours. I said,
funny.
Where did you find this?
I went through all of that. That's so funny.
No idea.
Yeah, there were so many things. I'm like, what is this? Oh, that's great. Wow. Oh, that's really funny.
That, and the other thing, Kathy had an MBA in business, and we decided right away that she would take care of the finances. And I was like, live it up. Well, suddenly I'm like, oh no. And so that actually, I turned that over pretty quickly. I've got that under control really quick within the first probably week or so. I think I only made a couple double payments because of auto pay on a few things. And it's like,
hey, double's better than none.
Oh yeah. But I just look at the statement a little bit later. It's like, wait a second. Why do I have the same amount? Oh no. So.
Oh, I see what I did. Yeah.
So those were the two biggest struggles for me.
But,
and what advice would you give to a brand new widow? I mean, you're pretty new, but like during those first few weeks to a month, like what would be something you would say to a new widow?
I would say hold off, and you hear this all the time, hold off on any big decisions. And I would place more things in that big decision category than just like selling a house or selling a car. I would actually feel that, like I said, getting rid of clothing, getting rid of personal items, I think that should be in a big decision category, because once they're gone, they're gone. And those are memories. Whether you think about it then at the time or not, those are memories. And once they're gone, like I said, they're gone. So
yeah, no, that's good advice. I'm kind of on the opposite end. Well, after a few months, I got rid of some of it. I asked his mom and people, and then I saved some for the kids. But then, I mean, I still have stuff. 3 years later, I have tons and tons of stuff where it's really difficult for me to get rid of anything, even now. But I also do have something.
Go ahead.
Excuse me. I was just going to say, I do have something special. He had so many t-shirts that I have enough to make 4 quilts. I don't make it. I'm going to have somebody make it so I can make one for his mom and the 3 kids for this next Christmas. So that's my goal with that. And then now, like I've been, when he first died, didn't fit any of the kids, but now Hayden's getting bigger. Like he's more like his dad's size now. He's getting there. And so he has actually been wearing more of the clothes. And so I am glad that I did keep some of them to now, like, okay, now you're older. Do you want any of these? Like the other day, I was like, you're wearing your dad's shirt. He's like, oh, I didn't know where this came from. I think I just put it in his room and he wore it. And I was like, oh, I remember when it was like a shirt from our honeymoon or something. He's like, oh, that's where it's from. I'm like, yeah. Anyways, it's just kind of cool. But there's no right or wrong way to do it, because I know our listeners have probably done all the things we've done, like gotten rid of it right away, in between, like all the places. And so I think whatever you do is right. So
I was
thank you
thinking
for
the
sharing.
same.
And I would also
that if I didn't get rid of it right away, they would never leave the house ever. And so, and I don't want to be a hoarder for me.
Yeah. I mean, I had still, like right before Joel and I got married, I had I like got the vacuum seal thing so you can make things smaller, but I had tons of Luke's t-shirts under our bed. And I was like, I have to at least, now they're down in the closet. It's like, I at least have to move them out of here. Not that Joel ever said I don't want his stuff in our room, but it was just out of respect. I felt like I need to clear out, Luke's stuff before Joel moved in, and I had to make room in the closet and all of that stuff. So,
well, you made a big choice also
and I was
to sell your house and move.
Mm-hmm.
Both of you moved. So
yes,
both of us,
moved. Yeah.
I waited a little longer, but
right.
It was situational for me. But I was definitely considering it right from the get-go. But Lacey and I had talked about moving out of state for a long time. But yeah, it was very different when it actually came time to do that. But something I also wanted to add, just for the listeners to hear, is that something else I think you did phenomenally well that has brought you to this point was not only doing the steps, doing grief share, listening to the ultra famous podcast that you listen to, but was inviting the Lord into the situation with you. And even though, you self-admittedly had anger, you were still pointing that anger at God. You weren't turning from God. Right. And like you've heard us say before, like, God can handle it. God can handle your anger, and it's okay to be angry. David was angry with God, and all these other situations we've all heard about. It's okay, and he can handle it. But you invited him in, even in your anger. And so I want the audience to be able to hear that even in your anger and your frustration and your depression and your sadness, you can invite the Lord into all that. Even if you want to tell him, like, I don't understand this, I'm so mad at you right now. You're still inviting him in, even in your anger, and you're still talking to the Lord, even in your anger. And I think that's beautiful, and can really open up the door for healing and finding not necessarily answers, but what you need for your own soul to feel like you have some answers, some clarity. Even if they're not answers, it's clarity, right? Even coming to the conclusion that I don't understand this, but your ways are above my ways. Even that is a form of clarity, and something we all need in our hearts. We need to kind of have some level of understanding of the why, because for all of us listening and for all of us here talking or whatever, like, the why is probably like the biggest question, especially when you have someone like Kathy, Luke, Lacey, whomever, like the Lord was using to, like, that's what I didn't understand is, like, I was like, Lord, you were using her. She was bringing she was
right.
glorifying your kingdom and everything she did. Like, didn't she have so much more work to do? But there's this side of you that's just like, well, no, because we don't know. We don't know God's plans. And we just put our faith and our hope in heaven. And, we go through what we have to go through here on earth. So anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take it away for so long, but you know how
Come
I do.
on. Yeah. I just wanted to say that you give me so much inspiration just to see where you are in 6 months. And so I know with all of our baby widows that your story is going to give them so much hope to see someone, because they're going to be like, oh, to me and Mark, you guys are a couple years out. They haven't seen our whole journey, but you're someone who really is fresh in this. And so your story is going to give people so much hope. And I love that you have taken the steps needed and really drawn from the Lord, and then also taken steps, with Grief Share and all the things that you've done to get to where you are. So it's a true inspiration to listen to you.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
One of the things I do struggle with, though, I was in Chicago for a friend's wedding and a friend's son's wedding just a few weeks ago, beginning of June, and a lot of people from our church were there, and I was sitting at a table with them, and it was couple, me. And that is something that unless you go through it, you don't know what it's like. And and that's something that three of us have been to, and we dealt with, and we are dealing with it still. And that's pretty tough. I'm shocked how tough that really was. I wasn't really prepared for that part.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Naturally. And it's seeing the couples together, feeling that like the ninth wheel, feeling like they're hanging out with you because they have sympathy for you. Anytime you hear somebody complain about their spouse,
oh my gosh,
there's just so many things that can just, just trigger you in a second.
And a wedding is hard enough. The first wedding I went to of my nephew and niece, like I bawled because it was so hard to see people getting married. So you had that along with feeling like alone. I'm sorry, that's really hard.
Yeah. And that though, just that does get easier also. You start to see things with more clarity and things like that. So
that's good to know.
But that's tough. Yes, it is tough though. I remember that vividly. And I remember just looking around and I was like, well, there's that married couple, and then me. And there was this like, oh gosh, they just totally invited me here because they feel sorry for me. And not saying that they didn't want to hang out with me, but just there's kind of this feeling that kind of, I don't know, for me, that's how it was. I felt like I was like, wow, the reason, like, I'm not part of a couple anymore. I was invited here because people feel bad for me. And I know that wasn't true, but I'm just saying that's how it felt. And
all of these couples that were at that table were very good friends with us. And it's just like overwhelmed with how lonely that situation was. And I got up twice from the table and I had to separate myself from the rest of the crowd and just be alone for a few minutes. And then I was able to go back and handle it until I started to have another meltdown. I went and did the same thing again. And that really helped.
Good for you though. You're doing what you need to do. And that's like the biggest thing is doing what works for you. And if you need to get up and walk away, that's okay. And people will understand it. I mean, I've had to walk out of a few church services that I just couldn't be in there anymore. I couldn't listen to one more word of that sermon. And it wasn't, of course, out of anger. But it was just hearing them talk about one sermon, for example. Well, one was Mother's Day. I had to walk out of that. Another one was the pastor reminding the husbands about how important their wives are and just going into it and this and that. And I mean, there were honestly probably like 4 or 5 church services that I just got up and walked out of because I was like, I just can't be here right now in this moment. Like, I just can't hear this. It's too hard. And so yeah, just that's great that you recognize it. That's a huge part of finding your healing is like recognizing what you need and when, and having the courage to do what you need to do.
And I'm going to do some promotion here for you guys, but
awesome. Listen up, ladies and gentlemen.
That day that I had that meltdown at work and I just started Googling and that's when I found the Widowed Too Soon podcast and Grief Share at the same time. I honestly feel the Lord put you guys and Grief Share in that search result on purpose for me. You guys were such great help, especially in those early month and a half, 2 months out. And I couldn't get enough of you of the podcast.
That's awesome. Wow.
And you don't understand the depression you put. No, not depression, but when I finally caught up, I'm like, what am I going to do now?
That's awesome. I know that feeling when you binge watch things and it's like, it's done. I get what you're saying, but I didn't know that anybody would ever say that about us. But we're still here. We're still making
what an honor.
Right.
It's such an honor. And that's such a kind compliment. I know we really appreciate that. Thank you.
That means a lot.
And we're just, we feel so blessed and humbled that we were able to help you that much with,
well, thank
us
you.
just doing what we do. Thank you. That's and you're very welcome. I'm just like speechless for the first time ever. Speechless. That's truly, I don't know. There's been a couple times in my life, but that's such a kind compliment. Wow, I'm really humbled by that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Rob, do you have any last things that you want to say?
No.
Or questions, Mark?
No.
Any last words?
Okay, I didn't phrase that right. You know what I mean.
No, I'm just kidding.
Mark,
I'm just
did you have
being
any more
sorry.
questions? I know.
Gosh, you know, I mean, there's so many that, you know, I do want to ask. So this might be hard for you to address. I'm just curious. Have you thought about what it would be like to date again? I mean, or is it too early for you to even think about that?
No, it's not too early. It's my daughter and I have talked a little bit about it. I haven't had a desire to pursue dating at this point, but down the road, yes. You know what when Kathy was diagnosed with the cancer, and we were told that her immune system was going to be so low, we just we stopped a lot of things like kissing, and what we did have was hugging, and I miss the hugs so much, and
I remember that,
and it just, you know, to this day I miss hugs, and that would that I got to watch that because it's a physical, you know, seeking something physical, but
right.
That is probably going to lead me more to dating than probably anything else at this point. But it's yeah, I will at some point start dating again, and it may be sooner rather than later, but I just don't know when yet. I actually,
I asked. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Went on to check out a couple like Facebook dating and a few other sites, and I actually started to fill out a profile, and I said no, not yet. And then I went again and on another place, and no, not yet. And so
that's good. It's good to know yourself.
I relate to that. And the reason I ask that is because, for one, I want to encourage you, as you've heard us say before, like, it's okay. Yeah. Whenever you're ready, it's okay. But I obviously I can't speak from a female point of view, but from a male's point of view, I know that it was there was just so much missing from my life that a wife brings. So much just feeling like somebody making you feel like you're special, somebody making you feel grateful for you. And all these other things too, in addition to the hugs and kisses and holding hands and all that good stuff, right? Well, but like, I know for me, it was, gosh, it was just like my life felt incomplete in many ways. But there was just something about wanting that companionship, wanting somebody to sit there and watch TV with and not be watching it by myself. There were just so many things. And so that's why I asked, because I know if you're not dating, which you said you're not. So like, I know you're in that season of recognizing all the things that you're just doing alone. And I know it's obviously the same for women. But women miss different things than men miss. And, you know, for me, it was very much the feeling of companionship and my best friend and the person to talk to every day, that, you know, all that stuff. And so that's why I asked. And also just to encourage you that, you know, whenever you are ready, like, don't let any outside influence keep you from meeting somebody awesome. And I would start praying to the Lord about it. Just, you know, from one man to another, I would start praying for the Lord to bring you that right person.
I have.
Good for you. Good for you. That's fantastic.
You've been an example of that. So
thank you. And he did. He brought me literally everything I prayed for in a woman. That I was on this roll where I was like, Lord, you said I can ask for anything in your name. So I want her to be short. I want her to be, you know, and I literally like had this list that I would just expand upon every day. Has to be short because I'm short. So, you know, but it just didn't matter to me. It was just like anything I thought of. I would ask for her to be that way, and including being widowed so that she would understand my grief. Just all these different things. And like, I can literally go down the checklist, and I've done this with Tina many times, where I'm like, this is what I was praying about, and tell me that this isn't exactly you, and so the Lord can really do amazing things. And I just, encourage you to keep doing that, keep praying, because she is out there.
Yeah.
And she will fill a hole in your heart that that you never thought. And I'm speaking on this because you have the desire. If you didn't have the desire, I wouldn't be saying any of this, but she will fill that hole in your heart in a way that you never thought you could feel again. And I'm going to I promise you, I'm going to pray for that for you. And I'm going to keep you in my heart and in my prayers. And because I know the incredible blessing that it can become.
And I can also second that with a list. I made a list, even have an accent,
and playing guitar.
Well, no, I said playing instrument, but he does play guitar.
Oh, instrument. That's right. Yeah.
And even dance. Now, okay, so dancing, he's not a dancer per se, but he will dance with me, so that counts.
That's a dancer.
Always dances with me, even though he wouldn't go dancing myself, but he's danced with me many times. Literally everything on the list, down to, literally everything. And so it definitely can, and for both of us, it's happened, and it's been absolutely amazing. So
and you guys have inspired me to pray specifically about some things also. So.
That's awesome,
good.
Rob.
Good.
That's awesome. You're doing a great job. Well,
one of the things
please.
that I like doing things around the house. I like I replaced all the windows not too long ago, and she was there. She wasn't helping, but she was there by my side, and she would be there in the room, and she would vacuum up the mess I made, or she would do whatever. And I was supposed to resurface our deck last October, and that's when she spent the entire month in the hospital. And the material was purchased in September. It's been sitting on my deck ever since. And our young married, the YME ABF, came over and tore my deck off about a month ago. And I just have not had the motivation because I'm missing my encourager. I'm missing Kathy. And as a result, I think I'm going to end up paying somebody to come out and take care of this for me. But
no, that is.
She would have just been sitting there watching and encouraging me and just helping me in an emotional way, not so much a physical way. And
right, yeah.
That's one of the many holes that losing your spouse creates.
Yep. And it's those things that somebody who hasn't been through it wouldn't think of.
Right.
And and I'm sorry, because I wish I was a little closer. I'd come help you out with that. I also like doing things around the house.
Yeah. Well, Mark, will you go ahead and pray us out?
Yes, absolutely. Lord, I'd like to thank you so much, first and foremost, for the life of Kathy, and what a beautiful soul. It's just such an encouragement to hear about another faithful believer of yours, about another beautiful marriage that you created and made, and that they were supposed to be with each other for that whole season. And we thank you for those beautiful, I believe you said 37 years of marriage. Gosh, what an inspiration to so many of us who are not there. And I thank you so much for that life of Kathy. And I thank you, Lord, for Rob and for his inspiring testimony and his desire to proclaim the good news, the gospel. It's so inspirational, Lord. And I thank you for his heart and for his wisdom and his ability to pick up the pieces and move forward with faith in his heart. We know there's difficult times, Lord, and we pray over those for him. And we pray, Lord, that we just want to echo whatever Rob's prayers are about you bringing a woman into his life when that time is right. When it's your timing, his timing, and her timing, Lord, we pray that you are working behind the scenes and working quickly. And I pray, Lord, just for the simple things, for the small things that Rob feels inspired to be preparing meals and all these other things, and that he can be there for people and pray for, and I believe their names were Ellen and Mark. I pray for Ellen, Lord, that you would be walking through this season with her also, and that they would continue to grow closer. in their friendship, and that Rob could be there for her in her time of need. And I just thank you so much for this blessing, Lord, of us being able to do this podcast and you speaking through us to be able to help people. What an honor. And we ask all of these things and praise your name in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, if you liked this episode, give us a little bing, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Rob knows. He's like, ding, 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 ding. Or anywhere that you listen. I also wanted to say again, I think we introduced the concept last week or the week before, that Widow Too Soon is actually a ministry of Widow Goals, which is a nonprofit I started about a year ago. And what Widow Goals does is we help, number one, do the podcast, to produce these podcasts. And we also have social media content, and then provide grief classes called Grief Recovery, and give scholarships to widows, as well as local events. So if you have been touched by this ministry and you want to give back, there will be a link in the description that you can give to. And it is a nonprofit, so it'll be a tax write-off. So I just want to share that again. And if you want to be a guest, you can email us at, oh, wait, it changed. I was going to say the normal one. It is. It's different now. Widow Too Soon at widowgoals.org or .com. They both go the same place. And the best way probably really is our Facebook page. It is growing. Did you know it's at 1,700? I'm pretty sure it said last time I checked. So we're getting close to 2,000 people.
Whoop, whoop.
And that's probably the best place to send us a message, because it doesn't get lost in the emails. And you can also join that community, because there's a whole community of people interacting and supporting each other. So we'd love to have you part of that. There is a link in the description. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. So thank you again, Rob, for being here today. We really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you.
And yes, we will see you guys next time.
God bless you, brother.
Bye.